Hello there. Welcome to what is considered to be a Goosebumps HorrorTown review of sorts. This one's going to be different because I'm going to be taking a look at the whole year in general. If you've seen my last part, which was talking about the review for the recently done Shop Till You Drop Dead, you would have gotten a good idea with some of the content when it comes to the short ones anyways. The shorts, the long main stuff, you know, the main events. In this part, I'm going to be taking a look and review what I feel were the best content updates that were permanently added to the game for this year. And then I'm going to tell you at the end of the day my overall feelings on the whole shebang, as it were. Now, while we are doing this, I want to make a quick mention on something. I'm going to exclude two things from this list. The first one is going to be that of the Valentine's event. Although a permanent update was added within this content, I'd feel like it was included as an event as a whole, so I've decided not to put it here because then that would be unfair for the other ones. The second thing I want to do is I want to not do the New Year's update that happened in the beginning of the year. The reason being is because there's not a whole lot when it comes to this kind of content. Besides new animations and a few other odds and ends, I wouldn't say that there was anything too robust when it came to this update. So, those are just a few things I wanted to address here. You might also notice that this video content is a little bit more simplistic compared to the other ones. This is because I wanted to get this quickly out there before the inevitable content, so I figured this would be a quick way to do it while I'm doing this through my capture device, which is going to be, I think it's XSplit, so you get a good idea with what's going on here. So with that in mind, we're going to first take a look at the altogether we had like 3 main updates for the small one. If we're going to exclude the 2 I've mentioned, we have 3 small updates and then 3 big main ones. So while I go ahead, let's talk about the smaller ones, and we're going to do it from worst to best. So for me, the first worst small one was that of Mr.Wood. Now, don't get me wrong, I think a lot of people was watching this or viewing this one, and it's not that I don't like this update, far from it. I love the fact they brought Sam into it as a permanent guest. I loved the new added character, Mr.Wood. I think he's a great addition to the game, and I think as a moving forward, it's going to be an interesting villain to see what he's going to do that rivals with Slappy. But the problem is that it felt like there was supposed to be a book involved, and yet there wasn't. Instead, it was just, here's some random updates, and here's some things, and that was it. And it seemed a little bit missing something, the best way to describe it. And so that's why I feel like, compared to the other ones I'm about to show you, I feel like this one lasts here in the 3rd place. My second favorite update that hit, that was small, was that of the How I Got My Shrunken Head update that was given to us back after, I believe, the April update, which was the Easter event. Now, the reason why I put this in this side was because of the limit stuff we got. Now, it is interesting that we got the Magalani character and his story, and as well as a more interactive when it came to Jordan. You know, because we rarely get some of the characters to progress, and this is where we get a little bit more with the Jordan, which is an underutilized character, as well as like Megan, and maybe we'll see those other characters in this year coming up. But as far as my opinion goes, some of the new items that were introduced during this update wasn't as interesting as they could be, and we basically had this guy added to the mud monster scene, which makes sense, I guess, because of the way he was put into the bayou, like, not the bayou, but, you know, the swampy area kind of thing. So, again, there's that. My biggest thing why I despise this as well is because of the price that they had. Compared to the other characters that were introduced in this small update, they were very, very small in the sense of what their content's worth. So that was one of the things why I've decided to put it in second place. So that will leave only one to be the winner, and probably wondering why this might be the case. That would be that of Attack of the Mutant. Now, the reason why I put this one on the list was not in the bias because I like Libby and the mutant story and all that stuff. It was very intriguing. But I think the real reason why I liked it was because of the items they gave you for this update. It was so cool to see you being able to taking the element of the comic book world or his kind of style and putting it in the game. And I guess in a biased opinion, I did like how I did the game like narrative with that, especially with the secret layer, as it were. And truth be told, I think I really liked the twist on that came to their character as a whole, the masked mutant, as well as Eric. Especially since Eric used to love and idolize the mutant, it was only make fair to actually see an update with the mutant involved. So it's nice that we finally get that there. We're still missing 4 that we hopefully maybe we'll see this year, that we're missing scenes that have stories but no books for. So who knows, we might be able to see them in the future. So that will leave that for the small updates. So that's my third, second, first favorite. So now we're going to get to the big daddy of the bunch. My picks when it comes to what I felt was the best and worst of the main content update. So we're going to go with the third one, I guess you call it the worst one. And that was the Beware of the Snowmen. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't a worst, and you might think that because it's third place, it's really that awful. No, there are other things that surpassed it, is the reason. This update was pretty decent. It was pretty decent when good. It came at a time where you got wintry stuff, so it's like, oh, we got this wintry area you can put them in. The monsters were very intriguing. We got a little bit more expansion when it came to that of Conrad that was introduced in November. So we got a little bit more of his story, as well as the first time we actually got an animal, which that would be Wolfbane. And we get a new area for crafting and the narrative and all that stuff. And a little bit more of a redemption when it came to that of Brooke and Reki. So in that aspect, I really did like how they designed everything here, but all in all, compared to the other ones I'm about to talk about, I can see why this wasn't so, the best. So, in second place, has to go to that of Deep Trouble. The reason why I'm giving it to Deep Trouble is because this was the anniversary update, and introduced a lot of new things. They introduced a new premium character. They introduced the character Billy, which is another human hero character that was free to get, as well as the new scene, which is the scary, the Scarlet ship, or I'm trying to remember what the Scarlet. You know what I'm talking about. It's the ship. I'm trying to remember what its name is exactly. But all that being said, there is some things I wanted to discuss here. Namely, besides getting the cool cake that came with this update, if you were able to come there in the first week, I'm going to exclude that stuff because it didn't really seem like it were amping up the holiday, like the anniversary stuff. It was more so focusing on that, so it only applied if you were there for the first week. So, I'm going to review it as just the piratey stuff. They finally got to explain the spooky moving octopuses or octopi in the waters of sorts. We got to see a familiar monster in that. And the stories, both for Longben as well as the main Deep Trouble one, were fun, especially having Billy be associated with that of Selma and Dr. Fredericks was an interesting twist, and how they kind of narrated to go, oh, I'm going to call you Dr. Deep, and it's like, oh, okay, this is where you're going to go with this type of deal. So I found this was a fun update, and the content they kind of gave out with some of the beach stuff, I thought it was kind of interesting. Not really the best, but, you know, interesting nonetheless. I feel like it was pretty decent, or cool. Hard to try to muster words to describe these feelings. But with this being in second place, you probably may have already figured out what my first place is. You might be wondering why I picked this as number 1. And that goes to the You Can't Scare Me update. Now, this one was introduced right after February, and it's very weird how I decided to have both my favorite stuff just so happened to be in the beginning of the year, February and March. Now, again, not all the updates were awful. I've kind of mentioned this. Just because they're last place doesn't mean that they're like really bad. The only exceptions to that were 2 updates, which I've mentioned before, which was in August and September, but I already mentioned why in those videos if you really want in-depth. But anyways, for this one, this was the first time we actually got a content update with 2 books instead of 1. It introduced Crombie into this mix during St. Patrick's Day, so you could look at it as somewhat of a holiday thing. It introduced the story to the Piranha People scene, which was that of the Deep in the Jungle of Doom storyline. And of course, we can't forget the Mud Monsters in the You Can't Scare Me book of the same name, where we get to explore more of Courtney's history and why it really made her scared. I think the stories that were introduced to both for Chuck as well as for Courtney and all this stuff, I actually really did dig, and I enjoyed the narrative that was going on with that. Probably one of the reasons why I ranked it on the list as I did. But the other big reason too is I feel like for this update they introduced some interesting items to the game that really did kind of made this whole area seem more interesting. They added a new crafting area, which was in the form of the smith place. They introduced new buildings that actually felt like they belonged there and made sense of what they dropped, as well as just having the swamp finally there, because they teased about the Fever Swamp, but yet nothing was there. And of course then the sinkhole appeared, and it was like, ah, there it is. There's the scene we were referring to. So yeah, that was one of the reasons why I liked it. But also Crombie as a character was really enjoyable. Just because of his personality. I love the fact that they basically took the honor of having him be a cave troll, but then also said, you know what, people mistake this guy as a leprechaun, so you know what, we're gonna roll with it. So they've kind of made the narrative like, oh, I'm a troll, but I'm pretending to be a leprechaun because it makes more sense. People are more keen to talk to a leprechaun than he will as a troll. And it's like, yeah, you know what, that makes sense. Dialogue wise, so oh. But yeah, that is my picks for these review. I guess not really review, but my ranks of what I found to be the best and worst. Highlight quote unquote worst. Not really worst, but you know, least favorite. That's probably the best. The best and least favorite ones compared to all the updates they have in total. So, what are my overall thoughts with 2009 as far as content goes? Well, besides 2 minor inconveniences, that being that of the 2 updates, the vampire update as well as the Welcome to Dead House, because of how bad it was handled, I feel like for the most part I think they were going in the right direction, and I think I'm looking forward to seeing what they have in store. It was also interesting to see how this game evolved since then. we've gotten more content since we got more features because of the games they've added. During this year, 2019, they had 2 games that were released, one of them being Wonder Park, and then the other one that was released was the Addams Family one. And during the Wonder Park, there was a feature they added that they've now added to this game, which is the search function, which is a time saver for the most part. Minor complaints aside with that feature, it seemed like they're adding more to the game, and I'm feeling more enjoyable to see what they're going to do with this content moving forward and updates, especially since with my involvement since the end of the year, it kind of now has a way for me to be able to give some of my, not really feedback, but kind of ideas to the team, and maybe they can take that and roll with it, but we'll have to wait and see. I feel like it was somewhat of an honor, though, I will say this, if the team is watching, because I know technically they are, but I want to say that it was a really nice, it was a weird but really nice feeling and honor, I guess, to be able to do the holiday this year, last year, content update when it came to the story and the narrative. And it got me to a little bit more appreciation to what this team does, as well as other stuff going forward with content. So, what are my wishes for this game? Well, for one, I'd like them to add some books to the game. There was a feature that just stopped in May and then never returned. I figured they were going to do something with the special book option, but yet I haven't seen anything yet, so who knows? Maybe it is coming, but I have to wait and see what goes on, because honestly, I'm just kind of like, oh, what is going on? What is this? But we'll see. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what they have in store. The other thing I want them to do is maybe have some way to finish narratives or kind of give conclusions to stories that we're kind of looking at during this game, because I've been playing with some of the narratives, and one of them, like for example, who's Agent X, or what was the werewolf that attacked Cronby, not Cronby, Conrad, who attacked him, because apparently it wasn't Will who attacked him, so it was some other werewolf. What werewolf did it, who was this RL character that's been teased, all that stuff. It'd be interesting for them to expand upon. The other thing I would want them to do is be able to content and finish off the four things we have right now. There are 4 contents that yet to be finished off, and that being both this game. Apologies, I'm blanking out here. What I meant to say was the 4 scenes in this game, which is the Shaggity from Here Comes the Shaggity, the High Lord Executioner from the Terror Tower, or Night in Terror Tower, the Ghost Hound Dog from When the Ghost Dog Howls, or was, I think that's what it was. You know what I mean, the blue Hound Dog. And the last one is the Evil Knight from the Knight in Screaming Armor. It would be interesting to see them kind of completing the stories there and seeing how well this will go forward. And I'm kind of looking forward to seeing if they can actually put in the special book option finally, because that's been teased for almost a year now, and I want to see them doing something with that. Either that, if they're not going to do anything with it, then just take it off, because it's just teasing at this point. The other thing I forgot to add is that maybe we'll find out about the castle up there. We pretty much know that's going to be Vampire Breath because of the hints that was given to us by Yavani and all that stuff. They've been confirmed that that is the castle to the thing. But I'm also curious about what other content will be coming. Now, because of my connections now with the team, with being in contact with somebody through with a representative, I can tell you that I've gotten some interesting ideas I would like to see in the game, and I'm talking with the person in question. And it'll be very interesting if I'm able to kind of influence some stuff here. And I'll be honest, the other thing I'd like them to do, if possible, is to please add characters that do not cost money. Now, people like myself and other power players, or the what you call the premium players, I guess that's what you call them, the premium players, the elite, the master race, as you would call them. They give the team, you know, like, the reason I do it is because of the whole supporting them, one, and the other reason is because I myself like to see more content moving forward, and then also investing when it comes to this channel. For now, when it comes to the Goosebumps HorrorTown content. The one thing, though, is that I've noticed that there's been a lot of more premium characters added to the game rather than any free ones. It'd be nice to see more free ones come through, and they've kind of started to do that when it comes to the Saints and some old characters like Sam being introduced into books. That was something I liked, and, you know, as much as some people hate the limited time content updates, I kinda like them just because it gives me an idea when the next one comes out, because right now we are kind of dealing with a small little update, I guess a New Year's update, and they certainly made the content like work around it, but it's kind of like, ooh, kind of deal. But with that being said and more, we'll talk more about that when it comes up. But overall, 2019 was actually a decent year. It had a bit of a stumble and halfway through, but I think it kind of picked itself back up by the end of it. So overall, decent start, like a good start. Then it kind of like was in the, okay, then it just fell down. But then it got itself back up and has kind of walked again. Hopefully we won't have another stumble like that. Because, oh man, that's a very dark time. Hopefully that will never happen again. But, you know, with these kinds of things, it may. But looking forward to this year, I'm hoping that a lot of the stuff gets solved, and I may be able to kind of have some influence in some of the content, but we'll have to wait and see. So, with that in mind, that will be it for this kind of review. I do apologize that I'm not able to kind of do a collection walkthrough type of deal, because at the end of the day, I got most, if not all, the characters that were permanently released. The only 3 I don't technically have is the Chiller's House, the Squeezer Hatchery, and the recent Mayfield Bazaar. The reason why is because they have not been officially released as of yet, but they most likely will at some point. When? I don't know, but I will be looking into that and posting updates when that comes into play. I'm also hoping to finish off some of the books I've missed out so far. I kind of made a mention of them before, but as of right now, I have about 6 stories that I have to make a video on and kind of do. Besides this small update that just hit in January, I have to deal with, the next one will probably be that of the Blob. And oh boy, out of all the stories, this one's gotta be the most boring one of them all. I'll explain more about that when I get to it, if I ever do get to it. But all you need to know is just, oof, you know. That's all you need to know, is oof. But, it's a necessary oof, I guess. Yeah, and I most likely am going to have to do an update when it comes to the Valentine's Day thing. Maybe it's a Valentine's Day update. Normally they love their holidays, and Valentine's is coming up in February, so it wouldn't be a no-brainer to see that might be popping in. As far as when it might come, I'm not 100% sure, but with the fact that we have such a blank slate, like nothing is going on, there might be a chance that we might be getting to see something come out, maybe at the end of the month. At least by the end of the month, we might be starting to get to see some teasers, but I don't think an update will hit until, like, maybe the beginning of February. And maybe the reason why it's such a small update during this time is maybe because they want to put more effort in into this event to make sure everything goes well. So maybe it'll be like last year when they had interesting content and actually perma stuff. But we'll have to wait and see. When that does come out, I will be making a video of it, of course. And my hope is to be able to do that on the time it comes out, so that Casey is not the only one who does it right now, or some other guy. It will be me. Because I think I'm the only one who actually goes into investment in this, and even goes as far as to kind of give people helpful advice when it comes to getting some of the crafting items. But I think that's about it. I think I've gone on long enough. I went from doing reviews over 2019 to just ramblings, and I think I'm going to end it off now. So with that being said, I'll be seeing you next part whenever that comes out. But whatever I make when it comes to this game, I'll be seeing you during that time. So I've been Grim. I'll be seeing you next time. Until then, have a spooky one. Hopefully this year, 2020, will be a one to remember.